really cool.
Bonjour, hello, welcome to the first episode of Rosbifs Rugby, rugby podcast talking about the top 14, French rugby, Pro League, National, and all the fun stuff in between the towns, cities, grub and bars of France. I am Rich, I am one half, or more likely 1/3 of Rosbifs Rugby, and I'm joined by a man who you've probably seen lingering around your social media feeds if you have anything to do with French rugby or have any interest in that area at all. Rob, welcome.
Thank you, Richard. I don't know whether the 2/3 was a ego jibe or a weight jibe or what, but yeah, I'm Rob. I am the other half of Rosbifs Rugby. I just like the sound of my own voice more, which is why you've probably seen me on social media more than Richard.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Six Nations is over.
I'm excited to be recording a podcast with you for the first time. It's been a nervy one all day in the office, thinking, got to be on my best form for Richard. Can't let him down. Out
of the soundproof booth in a top four, not top four, what do you call it? Big four consultancy accounting firm.
No, I'm definitely not doing in work hours.
Yeah, we'll keep that one on the down low. Right, underway. Rosbifs Rugby, Rob. What is it? Apart from a disastrous attempt to get this thing going after 25 minutes of not being able to plug in a set of headphones.
It is basically, in my view, your one-stop shop for all things French rugby related and just any kind of interest you might have, and us just bringing the hype around French rugby because it is brilliant. I think you and I have fast become massive Francophiles over the last few years, and just I basically only spend my holiday allowance on going to France to watch rugby now because it's just the best experience, the best way you can spend a weekend.
Cool. I mean, that's pretty sad. I'm going to Costa Rica for 2 weeks next weekend, so yeah. I don't wish to be.
It'll be rubbish, mate. It'll be rubbish.
No, I jest. Would you consider yourself a blaireau, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, in French rugby terms? Do you know what that is?
I don't know what that is.
And I hope I've got this right, and it's not actually some sort of French slander, and this is going to get shut down. A blaireau is a badger.
Yeah, I did know that because I've used it as an emoji.
You have used
before.
it. Yeah. Nice.
Remarkably not to describe myself, but yes, I think I've fast become a French rugby badger. I think any time that anything can be a bit niche, I tend to go a bit all in. Would you consider yourself a blaireau?
I guess to an extent, but everything's relative, right? So to pretty much any other person at work in life I come across, they always tend to look at me with a slightly confused, perplexed expression. We're dipping off for a last minute Ryanair cheapo flight to some backwater in France to go and watch someone
you've never heard of. Yeah,
someone you've never heard of, and we'll be discussing more of that in episodes to come. But yeah, a little. I guess
bit. Importantly, Richard, would you describe yourself as a Rosbif?
No, probably not. In this sense, yes. But I'd like to think that. I mean, my French is pretty dire, as you've seen. But I wouldn't say so. Maybe in the sense of the picture of a Rosbif that Damien Penaud had on his celebratory apron the other day, where he managed to look like the world's. I don't think I've ever seen someone look quite that. Right, he looked absolutely drilled, didn't he? Yeah. I don't know if it's just that sort of Jim Carrey, slightly manic expression that he constantly has on his face, but I don't know.
He might
pulled
be
it off,
dizzy
though,
from
didn't
all
he?
the running around in circles he did during the game. There was
Yeah,
some
yeah,
really good kind of sideways under 11s running going on from Damien Penaud on Saturday.
yeah. It's good to see, though, isn't it? It's very much
Going back to his real space cadet roots.
Yeah, he's some boy, that guy, some player as well.
I would say you and I are both Rosbifs because we are English or British, and we neither of us really speak French, and we just swan over to France, just probably quite to annoy a lot of French people, and they're kind of actually no, I feel like they really appreciate us being there. I think they're always like really enthused by having English people coming and seeing their town and seeing their rugby team, and they actually love that we kind of bring a bit of passion. But we are very much Rosbifs because we're English, I think, and we deserve that derogatory term to be thrown at us. Which is, for anyone that doesn't, a lot of people, someone I spoke to thought Rosbifs was a really bad amalgamation of your name and my name, not realising that Rosbif is a derogatory term for English people used by the French. So.
Okay, I can see Richard and Rob. I mean, it doesn't really work, does it? Let's be honest.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great. And also talking of the Rosbifs, I mean, again, I think everything's relative. The last, well, no, not the last trip you did to France, but the last trip I did to France to watch rugby, I would say we looked culturally, what's the word, sort of embedded, very much part of the furniture, by comparison to one or two of the other gentlemen who had flown to the south of France. We won't name the place.
We won't name the
or the team.
Our nickname, or our nickname for that group of people. I think, don't want to get in trouble. Don't want to alienate the fan base on episode 1.
But shout out to the Brexit Chiefs. Anyway, it was quite. Yeah, some good lads knocking about. To be fair, lots of friendly folk who and it's always a warm reception, isn't it, at these places? More so, do you think, than when a French club comes to the UK, or is it just sort of convivial atmosphere around and welcoming of guests and stuff like that? It's pretty old school kind of rugby value stuff.
I mean, they're just better at being convivial, aren't they? They're better at being drunk. They're better at dining and kind of making an occasion of stuff, whereas over here we just get battered and become thuggish. I genuinely can't remember the last time I went to a game here where there was a French team playing. Might have been your birthday back in 2011 or 12 or something like that.
Exeter v Clermont.
Yeah, I reckon that probably was.
Could well be. I was in January, went to Bath v Racing. And I'd say probably there weren't many travelling Racing fans. I think they were a little bit on their last legs in the tournament, if memory serves me correctly. And I don't know, maybe a sort of bit of kind of Gallic ambivalence to a match like that. As opposed to your hordes of La Rochelle or Bayonne or whoever it might be. A couple of them seem to be having a pretty good time.
That was the last time I saw a French team in the UK, was the fateful trip to Glasgow, where the La Rochelle fans were bringing a lot more energy than any of us.
Yeah, it was minus 18.
Yeah, it was cold.
I guess before we get started proper and maybe have a little ponder on the Six Nations that's just gone, France's slightly odd tournament, brilliant last game. Why now, Rob? Why have we decided to pull this together now rather than say in September when France were supposed to? Well, not supposed to. Well, when France was supposed to win the World Cup. We're very fortunate to be able to attend one or two games, visited some beautiful places. Other than shambolic organisation, why now for us dipping our toe into French rugby?
Shambolic organisation being one, boredom at work being another, potentially. But I think like as the season's progressed, I think like there's just a bit more buzz around it. I think around the top 14 generally. I feel the more we go to France to see these teams, you become more and more invested in Pro League 2 as well, and that's a fascinating league. But I think like it feels to me that's where the game's going, isn't it? Like France is becoming the economic powerhouse of world rugby in the same way that the Premier League is in football or the IPL is in cricket, I think, anyway. Like, you see some of the players going there now from New Zealand, Australia, England, Wales, all countries are losing their players to France, and the best players are congregating there in a fantastic league. So I think it's an exciting time to be looking at it and switching your attention to it, because there are some top quality, like generational greats from the England perspective going to ply their trade in France. Or next season anyway. But yeah, genuinely,
not all in the top 14 either, or potentially not in the top 14.
Well, maybe. Yeah, but you got two Test Centurions going to play in France next year from England, which is when did that? Well, probably never. That will have never happened before. So I think it's where the game's going, and it's easy to see why. I guess I want to show that to people. I want us to show that to people. We're the gateway into that world.
The gateway drug to French rugby. Nice. Well, look, let's get things underway. Six Nations roundup from a French perspective right now. Maybe we'll put a little blocker little thingy in there.
Yeah.
Last game of the Six Nations, the late kickoff in France, which, I mean, it must be a bit of a nightmare as a player, but it's pretty flair. Thoughts? It was pretty entertaining, and Leon looked very lively, double lively, as a geezer might have said.
Leon looked bloody great. It's a weird one though, because it's quite a long way out of town. Like, we've driven, when you go from the airport, you go past the stadium, and it's a lot. And I looked on a map; it's a lot further out than the Stade de Gerland where Lyon play. But what a stadium! It looks incredible. They do those big out of town stadiums pretty well in France, and they're like Marseille and Nice as well. I thought it was a great game. Do you know who was man of the match in that game?
Who was given official man of the match? I don't know. Was it Pernod?
No.
I'm assuming it wasn't. I assume it was French broadcasters.
They were, they were French. As far as I know, I think I've seen one player with a man of the match medal on Instagram.
Francois Cross.
You think so? Or maybe Thomas Ramos. It was Leo Barre.
Oh, nice.
Who missed a couple of balls at the back. I think he had one where he took a quick throw to himself and then just booted it long to George Ford. It's like, well, what was the point in that? But
he also got away with one of the more obvious penalty try yellow cards that wasn't picked up remarkably, albeit England did score about 20 seconds later. Yeah, I mean, he did look the first try, which was pretty poetic, right? His was probably worth it for that little delayed inside ball. To go inside
just the shift of the hips, the little. It's not even a proper dummy, is it? It's like a little shift of weight dummy. That was proper French rugby. He's definitely I kind of said this before he got into the team. He's a talent, but he's really raw. Way more raw than kind of some of the players that England have chucked in there, like Feu Bosa. He just, I don't know. I think he's just he doesn't look the complete package yet by any stretch. Whereas Deporter, I think, is looking closer to that, albeit bit of communication issues in defence between Ramos and Fiku, maybe not being helped out by the experienced lads that much. But
yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm trying to think of other occasions of defence being that optional as Thomas Ramos in the last couple of games. We're talking proper turnstile stuff.
Oh, I think we'll come on to it with one club in the top 14 when we come to it later. But yeah, certainly at international level, that was optional.
Yeah, but overall,
what a player! Like,
yeah,
I think you and I kind of both realised last year just how. I remember you saying I hadn't quite realised how good he is, and he is. Once you kind of, on first glance, he's kind of quite boring and normal, and then you just realise actually he's just such a key cog, and he makes everything look so simple, and he's just doing everything that he needs to do all the time and getting himself involved. I think he's a brilliant player. Yeah,
he's pretty special, isn't he? That sort of time on the ball, the almost not arrogance that goes with it. Well, I think he likes to give a bit out, doesn't he? He's had a couple of set twos. He had with Marcus Smith. There was one at.
I think that was Marcus Smith as much as anything. That's Marcus Smith just being like a 12-year-old boy.
I thought Marcus Smith actually had quite a pretty good game.
He's got like that boyish enthusiasm where he's like, you know, just the way Marcus Smith calls Mark is like, it's like a kid
expressive.
Just taking the piss. Yeah.
Expressive. Did love his handoff though for the try. That was that kind of like, like a Mario Kart where you get like the little shell not the shell, that's the thing that you shoot at people, the little booster, chevrons. The little star thing. Yeah, it was nice that. But yeah, overall impressions, I mean, fantastic game. Probably fair result in the end. Did we learn much? France are going to be pretty good with Flamand, and Meafu's a cheat code, and much more beyond that.
Yeah, I don't know how you feel about this. Like, France became, in that 2-3 year period up until the World Cup, they became like total rugby. Ireland were as well, but they got to the level of like the All Blacks teams that we expect from like the All Blacks, where the pack is great and everything looks so liquid and it's flair and it's the defense is great. And they kind of became that, having been like this big, like, caricature of themselves of just let's get the biggest blokes we can ever. I'm slightly concerned from a fan's perspective that I want them to go back to that, like, pre-World Cup. They feel like they're kind of back to like the 2018 version of France where it was just, let's just pick big blokes. I wonder if that was just a bit of a revert to type to get them out of a hole towards like when form was dropping off a bit. They were definitely nearer their best against England, but maybe it was the Wales game that was the kind of factory reset.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about picking big blokes. We're not talking lumps for the sake of it, though, are we? Like, Meafu has been pretty extraordinary.
Yeah,
like just ridiculous.
Antonio's phenomenal on Saturday. Like his carrying and tackling.
He had a brilliant tournament, actually. For someone who I feel like a couple of years ago was maybe, I don't know,
was literally just a big
enormous,
bloke.
Like, he wasn't pretty much it. Yeah. Work rate is ridiculous. That they've probably belatedly stumbled on Georges-Henri Collomb. I mean, I think I was mentioning this to you the other day. Like, I remember seeing him first play for Racing. This guy looked good. I don't remember him being sort of, the size of a house. I don't know if there's, like the weenie Antonio diet down in La Rochelle has like got him going or whatever, but it's just ludicrously big, and gets about, so they're not picking big blokes who can't do it.
Yeah, I was not expecting the way he played in those two games at all. I wasn't expecting any near that, because he's like looked pretty flaky when he's played for Racing and La Rochelle. So
any other?
I think Le Garrec, like, I hadn't seen loads of him before the tournament, and I thought, this guy's quick. He snipes around. He scores a lot of tries for a 9. There's some Dupont-esque things in there. He can't have the physical strength and he can't be the complete package. But like, size of his boot, like, he's not going to be, well, I'd be amazed if he gets to kind of Dupont levels, but he's not a bad replacement. Like he's pretty damn good. Like he is like going to be a poor man's Dupont, like anyone is, but I think he's just a lot closer to being a complete nine than I thought, or a 21-year-old should be, or 22-year-old, however old he is, should be.
Yeah, seems pretty real deal, doesn't he? And I think before the tournament there was, and where actually, in fairness, obviously had a slow start. Had that bizarre game against Italy, which probably should have lost in the end, were it not for an errant tee placement and maybe a bit of iffy refereeing. But he, at the start of the tournament, there was a lot of talk, wasn't there, about like the Luku Jalabert access. They've been absolutely flying with others at Bordeaux.
Unreal in the top 14. Like he was such good form.
Yeah, and he, I mean, I don't think he had any stinkers before he went off in, but there was a little bit of that. I don't know. It felt like a little bit of that. Just not like his game didn't feel quite as tight, which I think going in with Luku, who I think a lot of people who probably know a lot more about rugby than certainly we do, felt that this guy's maybe been underrated for a while, proper in the shadow, and poor bloke appears to. I don't know how many more starts he's going to be making in the next few years for France.
I just felt sorry for him because I've seen him and he looked like he should have been the perfect next kind of classic French Petit General, kind of your playmaker at 9. Like, there's so much stuff that he did really well that has just not been talked about. And the guys, I think he looked like he was going to cry after he scored the try against Wales. Like, it's just like some of his passing was brilliant. He kicks off both feet and kicks miles. Like, Alex Mitchell doesn't do that. Like, Ben White doesn't do that. And yet, people talk about them like they're brilliant. I don't know. It's just, I feel really sorry for the bloke.
Could have maybe done without playing behind a much lighter pack against what was a fairly totemic Ireland performance in that first game. Yeah. I thought, it feels like a while ago. Obviously, they didn't have the best, and they lost one game in the last 2 tournaments and beat the world champions not that long ago. But maybe a little bit unlucky in the circumstances, given they had locked. They basically had Willems everywhere, absolutely lost his Swede, didn't he? And Gabriel, who was a bit of a surprise call up. So,
well, that was their 5th and 6th choice second rows at that point, or by that point. So, poor Paul Willems. I don't know how many more games he'll be playing. Poor bloke. He missed the World Cup as well.
A full,
an 8 centimetre tear in his quad or something pre-World Cup. Like,
bit ropey. There we go.
But on second rows, the line out was actually very good on Saturday, as was the attack, which has been the places they've struggled.
Was this, am I right in thinking, because there was a lot of talk about the role or lack of thereof, the role of Rafael Jimenez in the line out, and there was sort of, I don't know if it's anything official, but there are murmurings around him being back involved in the camp.
No, he's just like a team manager, so he's like a pastoral man manager figure, because by all accounts, Fabien Galtier is a bit of a lunatic and quite hard to get on with, and therefore you need like the good bloke leader, arm around the shoulder. And there was a falling out after the World Cup between the two of them, I think.
Okay.
Something classic, like Galtier's brother-in-law was saying in the press how Ibanez was crap, or something brilliant like that. The line-out was just a new line-out coach. Karen Gazal went to Stade, and I think they had so much chopping and changing. I'm not surprised it struggled. The attack is the weird one, because Laurent Lebitte was brilliant before he moved to France, then went to France, and he seems to be doing pretty well at Stade. But the guy, like, I don't know, can you imagine if, like, for the England attack role, can you imagine them just bringing in, like, the Newcastle attack coach and being like, oh yeah, no, this guy's great. That's basically what's happened. Like, they brought in a bloke whose team just didn't score any tries and was bottom of the league. Like, that just seems so weird that you can get the top, one of the top jobs in the country despite not being very like having any pedigree behind you. I just think I don't know.
I mean, in fact,
hopefully it will continue to evolve, and
it's come good. Well, appears to be at least not come good. A bit premature, but it's been a bit better for England the last few games. And I think when the attack was stuttering and faltering, it was probably not entirely unfair to question whether Richard Wigglesworth was the right attack coach, given his millions of box kicks. You think he screams attack coach? Yeah, he's obviously doing something right now, isn't he?
Intelligent man. He won a premiership as an attack coach. Patrick Arletta has got nowhere near winning a top 14 as an attack coach. So
not yet.
Yeah.
But no, it was I thought a brilliant game. Like real talk about a kind of super Saturday topper. It was pretty spot on.
Yeah, I think that was a good Super Saturday this year. Actually,
it was
good vintage.
Anything else on France Six Nations?
Nothing really. But talking of exciting games, the Friday night game for anyone that watched it, and it'll still be an iPlayer. The under-20s game was a cracking game.
Yeah.
Like proper end-to-end. I think actually France went like 21-3 up or something, or 21-7 up. And England still won by 2 tries towards the end.
France genuinely outrageous try from, was it Carbonneau who finished it?
Yes. Yeah, or Ferte maybe. But that was just weird because like the crossfield kick goes over and Atisogbe gets it. Like he has to run backwards to get a crossfield kick. And I kind of thought, I reckon he can get out of it. And he just like that little dink kick, stabs it past him, picks it up, and then just some of the offloading. Their first try was brilliant on the offloading. Like, I think the interesting one with the thing about that game is I expected France to kind of run away with that. England had been the form team in the tournament. They had a last minute draw against Ireland, and as in Ireland got a try like 84th minute or something, and so they couldn't then get the Grand Slam. But France had all their players back, so France have used something like 45 plus players in this Six Nations because not all of them are available for all of the games because the priority order goes the French team, which is why I put Pisolo Tuolangi playing the French team. Then their top 14 or Pro D2 team takes precedence. So a load of the guys play for Brive like week in, week out. So they just weren't playing. But this game, because there was no domestic fixtures in France, they had all of those guys. So they had their starting lineup, by my count, had 130 top 14 appearances. That's not including Champions Cup, Challenge Cup, etc., or including kind of 50 odd Pro D2 appearances compared to like 12 professional appearances for the England team. So I thought they were going to be, bearing in mind this is a team as well that has won the Junior World Championship last summer. But England were really good as well. England were really, really good.
Feels like it feels like a pretty phenomenal win for England under 20s. That, I mean, you looked at, you're probably more in tune with a few of these players than I am, but back row France, Gazzotti, who has looked to the man born at Bordeaux, and I know a guy you think is going to be something special, Castro Ferreira, and obviously, a fair bit of hype around Pollock and Carnduff in the England back row. But I think you look at that team and probably expect them to get bullied.
So like, I mean, if you want the hype, like, you've got a 150 kilo 19-year-old who's played 3 games in the Six Nations. Like
150 kilos of hype.
Yeah.
No, it looked,
and that did look like whenever he got the ball, I just found myself out loud saying, no, thank you. Like him running at people was genuinely like, that is terrifying.
Yeah, it's got that sort of vibe, hasn't it? Of, playing rugby when you're 13, 14 at school or club or whatever. And there's a kid who rocks up like with a beard, driving, 2 kids, like that sort of thing.
That is a man.
Yeah, that really is a man. But yeah, fair play to England under 20s. I don't think anyone maybe saw that coming. Down it was in Po, wasn't it? Stade
Wasn't Po, Stade d'Hamout. Full sold out crowd. So that's 17, 18, 19,000, something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty good going. All there to see Atazogbe.
All there to see Teo Atazogbe. And I'm not surprised because he's amazing. I think it'll be it makes me want to watch the World Championships this summer. Ireland were really good. They were. That game at the start of the tournament, Ireland beat France again at Stade Maurice David in Provence. And they had a couple of players that just look absolutely phenomenal. They're number 8 and they're 12. Hugh Gavin is one of them, and the other one's called Sheehan. They're very kind of classically Irish names.
Yeah,
but I must admit, brilliant players.
I was a little bit slow kind of getting into it and watching it this year. I did watch most of the game down at the Rec the week before the draw, which was class. Both they're like proper teams. Exciting. And as on a last note to that, a player playing, English player playing in France, Junior Kapoku. Looked pretty useful.
He looked brilliant.
Has he made senior debut for Racing?
He has played for. I think he played for Racing in the latest round.
Enormous.
A hell of an athlete. And looks like he can do it all that you want him to as a second row.
Nice. Right. Well, should we wrap that up and we will move on to the main course,
the real quiz,
entree, the real quiz. Top 14. Coming next.
Yes.
Top 14 this weekend.
Yeah, we won't mention what just happened, Richard, where we forgot to record. Although you have been spared a weird chat about fishing in Angoulême, which came up on my Instagram feed, and us getting slightly derailed by an international cricketer who likes fishing. Top 14 returns this weekend, yes. And for those unfamiliar or new to the top 14, I guess key things to know: it's the top division in France. It's fully professional, obviously, because the top 2 leagues in France are fully professional. The 14th and last team gets relegated. We have promotion and relegation. Are there any other leagues in World Rugby at the moment that's doing promotion relegation?
Don't think of your top 12 teams. I don't think so. I think even in the Americas, the kind of South American stuff is. There are different leagues, aren't there, in Japan? Because some real big names have signed for some pretty pony clubs.
Yeah.
But I don't know if there is. I don't know.
I don't know whether that's based on the size of your company that sponsors you or not.
The Fujitsu Bulls or whatever.
Yeah. But we do have relegation in the top 14. The bottom place team goes down straight away, so the 14th team. The 13th place team, second bottom, will play a playoff against a playoff loser from the Pro D2. So the last couple of years, Perpignan finished 13th and they've won the playoff to stay up against a couple of different Pro D2 teams trying to get into the top 14. At the top end of the league, so obviously top 8 qualify for Europe in the same way that we have in the Premiership and URC. As things stand, I don't know if that's changing again next year. But the playoffs are determined by the top 6 teams rather than the top 14. So the top 6 go into the barrage, as it's known. The top 2 teams go through to the semis automatically, and the teams 3rd to 6th have a playoff to kind of get into the semi-finals. The semi-finals are a neutral venue again this year, being Bordeaux. And then the final is normally at the Stade de France, but it is at a neutral venue. And this year it is in Marseille, we think.
I believe so. I think so.
Only other time was 2016 when it was the Nou Camp. And that was because the Euros were at Stade de France, or they were prepping the Stade de France for the Euros or something like that.
That's quite cool, isn't it?
That would be a hell of a trip. I've never been to Barcelona. No French rugby in Barcelona. apart from that one time.
Nice. So, state of play, top 14. It's large swathes of that group of 14 is incredibly tight, notwithstanding a couple of outliers. Yeah, talk us through it, the top.
So the top, you do have a top two, which have kind of cemented their place during this Six Nations period. So it was really tight. It's probably like 4 teams. 4 teams separated by 1 point at the start of Six Nations, but now there are 2 teams on 55 points, being Stade Francais and Toulouse, and then 10 points behind is third and fourth. But you've then got between third, so La Rochelle in third on 45 points, you've got 4 points down to Toulon in eighth. So like that is change, like the top from third to ninth changes pretty much every week. Very rare that someone stays in the same position week on week, other than those top 2 who have maintained that. Yeah, Stade Francais, Toulouse, they are not quite home and hose for those top 2 places for the end of the season, but 10 points is a lot of ground to make up when you consider just how well those 2 teams are going. La Rochelle and Bordeaux, UBB, I think, so they're currently third and fourth. I think they are the 2 next strongest teams, and they will probably end up finishing third or fourth. We had a little play around looking at kind of forecasting the fixtures, and if you kind of do a very rudimentary guess, you do get those 2 finishing third and fourth. Then 5th to 9th, I would say, are the challengers for the barrage. That's where it's really, really tight and really interesting, and a lot of teams that will be trying to get up there. So Castres in 5th, Racing 92 in 6th. They're level on points. And they're also level on points with Pau in 7th. 3 points off are Toulon, and then 2 points behind Toulon are Bayonne. So that is very tight. Although Bayonne are only 1 point ahead of Clermont and Lyon in 10th and 11th, but I feel like the trajectories are slightly different between Bayonne and Clermont. At the bottom, Oyonnax are on 25 points, so they are now 10 points adrift of 13th. So they're basically scrapping for their lives just to get into that 13th place and give themselves a chance of staying up. Otherwise, they look kind of consigned to relegation already. But for that, between 13th and 9th, there are 4 points. So that's 1 win. So that's changing the whole time. So Perpignan are 13th on 35, Montpellier 12th on 37, Lyon 11th on 38, Clermont 10th on 38, and Bayonne, who we've just said are challenging for the barrage, are only 4 points ahead of Perpignan. So it does change every week. Like it's kind of 1 week it's disaster for Montpellier, and then the next week it's disaster for Lyon, and then the next week it's disaster for Perpignan, and then it's kind of all goes back round again because it's just, carnage.
Nice. And so in terms of, this weekend, there's a couple of, I'd say there's one real standout, which maybe we'll save the best till last, but maybe start at the bottom on Saturday. Oyonnax, Perpignan, it feels pretty bit early to say all or nothing, but you'd expect if Oyonnax lose that, they're in real trouble.
I think they lost at home to Montpellier that was when I was in France. And that was, to be fair, they got a couple of late tries to make it look respectable and get a losing bonus point. But Oyonnax have to win this, otherwise, that's a 14, 13, 15 point gap opened up to their next nearest rival. And the way their season's going, if they're not beating the bottom teams or the weaker teams at home, you just can't see it. And it's not a nice place to go. It's kind of probably the most obscure place in the top 14, I'd say, or worst connected place in the top 14. So it is a bit of a travel schlep for a lot of teams. And I can't see them. They could beat Perpignan at the weekend, but I can't really see them digging themselves out of that hole. I think they're lacking some star power, really. If you look at the other teams around them, they've got so many. I know it's not all played on paper, and I know it's not just about names, but they just have got nowhere near the names that these other, like Perpignan have got Tommy Allen, who is kicking absolutely everything, it seems, at the moment, not just like from anywhere on the pitch. And that's the sort of thing that you need in a relegation scrap, is just points, guaranteed points. Some of the Oyonnax defending, from what I've seen, is dreadful. Like, it is not like the more non-existent than Tomas Ramos in certain games. It's awful. I also think the other teams around them they've had wins recently. Oyonnax haven't really got that many wins in the last 5, 6, 7 weeks, I think.
Whereas came out of the blocks pretty well, didn't they? I think
they did start
the first
well,
game they beat La Rochelle, they beat Montpellier.
They have beat La Rochelle, yeah.
But that is, I think, a pretty decent time ago now.
Yeah.
So that gap is probably in actual fact a little bit bigger, but who knows? Big up.
Well, the other teams have been winning. So Perpignan beat Toulouse, albeit at home, in the last set of fixtures. They were pretty convincing in that game, to be fair. They beat them quite. I know that was a very weakened and very young Toulouse team, but that very weakened and young Toulouse team has done pretty well in other games. So, but the other teams like Perpignan and Lyon are winning all of their home games. I know Lyon, the only loss Lyon have had at home is the game we were at in November against Stade Francais, top of the league. So, and Perpignan, when they're beating Stade, Toulouse, Racing at home, that's pretty big deal. And that is a place that I would like to go. That the atmosphere in that Toulouse home game recently, like flares in the, like, as the teams are kind of getting the bus into the ground, just really, like, it looks like even for France, it looks like a pretty febrile atmosphere. That is also, if we, find a slot in spring, what a time to be on the Mediterranean, kind of late April.
I've not heard too many bad things about Perpignan as a spot. Sean Edwards, I think, is set up camp down there, isn't he? That's his abode. So
Use up.
And maybe going to see some rugby league as well. Who knows? Going to see the Cats land. Nice. What else have you got your eyes?
Béziers. That would be.
And Béziers is not a million miles away.
That's not a million miles away. Béziers are second in Pro D2. I reckon they'll be in the playoff final. I think they're going really well. They've got a fantastic team. I think
amazing stadium as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best, third most successful team in the history of French
decorated club. Yeah, I think you might be right.
And they've currently got a host of Portuguese World Cup stars as well. That's the kind of core of their team almost. But sorry, this is top 14. But it's very feasible to tie in Béziers and Perpignan into one weekend, which I'm very much looking to try and do.
Seems fair. What else have we got? Stade Francais Lyon. You would think that's going to be pretty one way in Paris.
Yeah. I mean, Stade have been good. They've just been good all year. They're not destroying teams, really. Even, like, I guess on the face of it, even 25-12 against Pau the other week, Pau didn't score a try. Stade scored 4 or 5, I think. So although it doesn't look like a big score line, they kind of played them off the park, really. Their defence is seriously good. Their pack is, like, some of their props, those Allo Emile brothers, are enormous. They've got really consistent ball carriers in the back row. Makalou is the stardust in probably the whole team. Just watching Roumat at the weekend, you think, oh, why couldn't they have just played Makalou? It'd be way more fun, them being France. And as we kind of hinted at a few times over the past few weeks, Laurent Lebeat was previously France attack coach. He's director of rugby. Perrin Gazal was previously France line-out coach up until the end of the World Cup, both of them, and they are director of rugby and head coach at Stade. And weirdly enough, those people that transformed the French rugby team to being favourites going into the World Cup seem to be doing quite a good job with Stade Francais, who don't themselves necessarily have as many kind of big names as some of the other clubs, I'd say, Rich. Would you say they've got Zach Henry at 10, who is a great player.
Yeah.
And seems like a great bloke as well. But
yeah, no, I think you're right. You look at,
he's not a headline grabbing fly half.
No. And you look at the start of the season at, well, two teams who are playing each other this weekend, Toulon and Montpellier. I mean, two teams that have famously been not famously, but been a little bit rogue in throwing cash. Some questionable choices around coaches, staff. Some what's the word? Some fairly opinionated owners and characters in the top brass. I guess what you say is you compare them kind of man for man. You don't quite get the same feel, but Stade Francais, they've been pretty professional, efficient. They've been throwing massive après-ski themed parties in the bar after the match. Maybe something for other teams to think about. Maybe that is where the performances are coming on. But guys sort of seemingly going, I didn't know anything about like Jeremy Ward. He's been brilliant in the centres for them this year.
Leo Barre, it'll be interesting to see how he goes back into it.
Yeah. I mean, sort of English player watch, Joe Marchant, I think is a brilliant rugby player, whether at 13 or on the wing.
I think he's been, I don't think he's been a good signing, but he's not been, he's not kind of Johnny Wilkinson at Toulon, Stefan Armitage at Toulon sort of levels of signing yet. Like, I think he's been fine. I don't think he's kind of torn it up from what I can tell, but good player, just a good solid player. He was pretty good in the game we watched. I think the best player in the game we watched was Zach Henry. I thought he was brilliant.
Yeah, he was very good. And hasn't always been starting at 10, right? It's
Joris Segons is kind of like the classically French fly half of just kind of very steady. I don't know.
Pull the team around the field.
He's supposedly a very good kicker, but whenever I've watched him, he's missed loads of kicks. So, but yeah, I think he was top point scorer in the top 14 last year. Joris Segons, maybe.
Cool. Well, yeah, I think we're both in agreement. Stade Francais probably win that. Briefly,
I think Lyon will be fine though. I think Lyon will be fine. Like they're
I
so
don't
strong
think they're going down. I don't think
they're so strong at home. Their pack is like when they get going, their pack is phenomenal. And again, they like we said about Perpignan, they've got Paddy Jackson at 10, who just kicks absolutely everything. Like when that game where they beat La Rochelle at home recently, their pack was just carrying so hard, and Paddy Jackson just kicked everything. And then they've got the little bit of Stardust.
Exactly, Ioane and
Niniashvili, unbelievable player. Yeah, Niniashvili, and those guys will all be back now.
Yeah.
Quite a few of the Georgian players have been missing at various points during what we would call the Six Nations period, but it was obviously Rugby Europe period as well. So yeah, they'll get those kind of that Stardust at the back. They'll be fine.
We spoke about Stardust a little bit there, and two teams have maybe flattered to deceive despite some of the names, Toulon and Montpellier in the early kickoff on Saturday. Toulon, whenever I've seen them play, just your man Mignoni always cracks me up. He seems to stand on the side with a clipboard shouting "Allez" and pointing, and I'm all about it. It's very kind of Sunday league. I don't know. It doesn't quite add up for me, but they've turned in some pretty decent performances this year, but have also maybe not quite where you'd expect them to be with some of the guys playing for them. Montpellier, horrific start to the season.
I can't on Toulon. I just cannot work them out. Like as soon as I think they're going to be crap, they are unbelievable to watch. As soon as you think, oh well, they were unbelievable last time, they're rubbish. Their line out is truly disastrous, like catastrophically bad. And I'm putting that on two people. One being Jack Singleton. I don't think I've seen him win a line out in his time at Toulon. And I must have watched about 3 or 4 games. The other one, do you know who's in charge of line out at Toulon?
Should I know?
The best looking bald man in the world. Not Maxime Lucu or Jason
Sergio Parise.
Sergio Parise.
Ah.
And their line out
in
is
official role as line out coach or forwards coach?
Yeah, line out coach.
There we go.
It is, and their line out is absolute shambles. It's not just Jack Singleton. He's just not getting anywhere near it, but neither of any of the other blokes. They've got like ribbons in the second row and like Olivon and Abadi, who are French internationals for their line out jumping. Just, it baffles me. But that pack has got so many powerful runners, and their back line is powerful as well. Like Naithalevu, Paiawa, big blokes.
Yeah. Jaminet back as well, who is a more than useful 15, despite falling out of favour, I suppose, with France. And Montpellier, who are actually on a bit of a run.
You've got a bit of a soft spot for Montpellier, haven't you, Richard?
I have indeed, through
face planting her pavement.
2 reasons. Yeah, I once, maybe a story for another time, tripped over a pavement in Montpellier and chipped a tooth. I also, in the same 24 hours, suffered a pretty severe bout of food poisoning in Montpellier. So yeah,
and yet you have
beautiful city, lovely little ground in the sun, and yeah, love Cobus Reinach, love Carbonell, like that 8, 9, 10 access. Obviously, a bit of a soft spot from Sam Simmons for his Exeter days, but they had a pretty monstrous start to the season. You look at, you think about, and the game isn't played on paper, but you look at some of the teams they were putting out that were getting beaten by Oyonnax at home and getting thumped away. But I think they've won their last, I want to say 4 or 5, maybe
5 and 6. They've won
5 and 6, and sort of not a million miles away at La Rochelle. So I mean, who knows? Like, it's not a million miles.
We're not blaming Richard Cockerell, though. I'm not letting you do that on this podcast.
Well, yeah, it's I don't know. Replacing Richard Cockerell with Bernard Laporte. It's just
maybe Bernard Laporte is actually maybe he is like a rugby genius.
I think he is probably, but he's
he probably is.
It's just that villainous streak that is brilliant, but it feels like a proper rogues charter, doesn't it? Like Cockerell into Laporte, and then I don't know who would be next. I don't know, someone else. I'm sure we'll find out next year when there's massive turnover of players. But that one, you would probably assume Toulon at home would win it, but it's not that far to travel. 2 teams who are a bit, bit neither here nor there.
I wonder if Montpellier's form is that good at the moment that they'll
fancy it, won't they?
Yeah, they will fancy it.
They thumped Racing not that long ago away from home. Yeah, who knows? We'll see. Right, let's get through these. Castres, my beloved Castres team, from a visit to Toulouse many years ago. Having a pretty good season against Racing, who have been on a real slide. Arrested the decline against Toulon, I think it was, a few weeks ago in Paris.
Yeah.
I can't see anything other than a Castres win.
No, because Castres have been pretty stable throughout the Six Nations period. They were really bad. Well, no, they weren't really bad, but they got just hammered in the game that I saw in Toulouse. But their pack was really good that day. They just didn't score any points. But they've got a pretty settled team. I think they're great to watch as well. I think they play Arata is a brilliant player. And they play with loads of pace. They've got a great scrum as well.
Yeah.
I think a great team to watch. I think they know what they're doing. And I don't know if Racing do at the moment. Racing, I think it has to be said, and amazing what we say about Tony D and the impact he has on France and Toulouse. But I think Le Garrec could be even bigger for Racing than Antoine Dupont is for Toulouse and France, because they've been playing without a 9 in some of these games. Like Max Spring played his first ever professional game as a starting 9 kind of a few weeks ago. And Clovis Labai has been struggling with injury. And so they've lost kind of Le Garrec, and then Gilbert was in the France squad who can play 9. You'd think maybe having some international quality halfbacks might help them a bit, but their pack is not as powerful as some of the others. And I think that is starting to come home to roost as well.
Yeah, I'd like it on record that Rob's moniker for Antoine Dupont of Tony D is nothing to do with me. Sort of sounding like a second-rate Hindu stripper. It was not my idea, but he's got this thing that feels like it's going to catch on at some point. Be down with the kids.
I just like the idea that if he was English, that's what he would be. He'd be Tony D.
Yeah, maybe. Right, we're on the clock. Clement Poe, section Paloise. Did you know there was a derivative of a Béarnaise sauce called a sauce Paloise?
I did not know that.
No. Do you know what
what differentiates a Béarnaise sauce from a Paloise sauce?
I'll give you one guess.
Given that Pau is in the Béarn region,
have a guess. There's a swapped ingredient.
You take butter out and put duck fat in.
No, you don't. No, you don't. As much as that does sound inspired, you replace tarragon with mint.
Oh, I'm not sure I like that.
No, it sounds a bit sort of washing up liquidy, doesn't it? But never mind.
Green, the Vert Blanc, green and white, like the section Paloise.
There you go. I mean, tarragon's green as well, right? So
yeah, but mint's more green.
Faded. Who's winning that one? Clermont have not been great, have they? Poe away from home also haven't been great.
Well, they beat Bordeaux away from home, but they've not.
That was only a few weeks ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. Having watched Clermont in a few of their recent games, they've been like beyond bad, like embarrassingly bad for like some of the names. Like they just make so many errors, just so many mistakes. Erda Pagetta, for a man that's won the top 14, just seems to have, I know he's old, but he just seems to have lost the ability to do anything. Like his kicking's been awful. And they just like drop balls at line outs, like setting up mauls and stuff like that. They're in a real hole. I think Christophe Urios said that they had a shit mentality merde recently, or shit mentality.
I did see on their Twitter today that there was a sort of fans council with I don't know, the sort of thing where I assume the locals go. Did you ever watch Sunderland Till I Die? The Netflix documentary where they go and give the owners and the manager a piece of their mind. It looked very much like that sort of setup.
And Christophe Urios is there giving it back?
No, it was a photo. We're not talking sort of like hidden camera, like it booting off. It's just Christophe Urios in a pretty oversized blue and yellow polo at the front. I think fielding some questions, probably a little bit more respectful, but they've fallen from grace for quite some time, haven't they?
Yeah, they are a team in transition. I actually think Christophe Urios is the man for that transition. He's got a really good record. At least to get them back to kind of Champions Cup level. I don't know whether he's not quite well, I guess he won the top 14 with CAF, but I just think they're so off at the moment. And Poe are doing pretty well.
Feels like the sort of game if Poe are going to finish in the top 6, they probably need to win.
They've definitely got a chance. I think the thing with Poe is their first 15 is brilliant. They just don't have the depth of some of the other teams. And in the away games, they're just not, in a very French style, they're not playing their best team in a lot of them. I think that's partly been injuries. Like, I think Timur Manu hasn't played that much. I know Joe Simmons, MBE, has been injured recently as well, or certainly wasn't playing for a few weeks. And maybe we'll see kind of their full. I think Maddox was injured as well, maybe even suspended. But those guys are back, and I hope that Becca Gorgadze will be back for Georgia. He's their real key player. He's brilliant. If those guys are playing, then they should win, I think. But it's just when they're playing. It depends what team they go with. Again, away at Clermont, it would be nice to see them go and win. My boys, section Paloise.
And the late kickoff on Saturday looks tasty, doesn't it? Particularly with La Rochelle regaining a little bit of form more recently. When was the last time Bayonne lost in the top 14 at Jean Daugé?
The Jean Daugé, I genuinely don't know, because it's not in the last 2 seasons. So they will have been in Pro D2 since we might have been at their last defeat at home in the league many years
21?
ago. November 21. It could feasibly have been their last defeat in the league at Jean Daugé. They have lost, but they have lost to
Glasgow, didn't they?
They lost to Glasgow in the Champions Cup. There are some caveats to this, or some asterisks. They lost to Glasgow in the Champions Cup and at Jean Daugé, and they lost in the top 14 in a home game last year to Po, but that game was the one at the Real Arena in San Sebastian for their kind of Basque celebration weekend.
We'd probably give up a flawless home record for a little weekend in San Sebastian, to be honest.
But it cost them a place in the barrage last year. But yeah, good day out, isn't it?
Lovely day out.
I reckon they'll beat Toulon in San Sebastian. They've got that Easter.
I think it's Sunday, Easter weekend, isn't it? Yeah.
I reckon they'll beat Toulon in. They've got the experience of playing in Real Arena now, and I think those Basque boys will get up for it.
And La Rochelle haven't travelled that well. They did beat Po earlier in the season away, didn't they? When Po were actually going really well, but
that was Greg Aldrich's first game back, and he was phenomenal.
They brought him back slightly early as well, didn't they?
Yeah, because they were struggling.
Extended break. Bayonne for you?
Yeah, I think La Rochelle are still going to be missing some players, Skelton, namely, and Bayonne won't because they don't lose many players or any to the international breaks, and their pack is just so good, and their home record is just so good. And I think La Rochelle, as I said, have been a bit flaky. I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if Bayonne go undefeated at home for the rest of the season. Like the way they put X to the sword in that Champions Cup game we were at, I think just shows you how much they step it up at home. Like that was a team that had 50, 60 points put on them at Northampton the week before and then hammered. Without Lopez, who is the man.
Yeah.
Probably my first love in French rugby, I'd say. Camille Lopez.
So we're going Bayonne to win at Cantor, or is that too far?
7 to 10 points, I reckon. Yeah. Cool. Denying La Rochelle a losing bonus.
Right, we will have a brief interlude and wrap up with the game of the weekend and a few odds and sods as well in just a moment. Right, final game of the round, Sunday night under nights at the Atlantique as opposed to the
Atlantique. Yeah.
Bordeaux Toulouse looks pretty handy on paper.
What a game to take to a bigger stadium. Like, I mean, shame that they're not backing themselves at the fort. Stade Chaban-Delmas is 33,000, 35,000. It's a big stadium. It's one of the biggest in the top 14. If not the biggest, I think.
What would be... Yes, how Ernest Vallon, maybe, Toulouse?
Ernest Vallon's like 17, 18. It's way smaller than you think. Yeah.
Well, there we go. That looks pretty spectacular. I assume a lot of the main men from the France team are going to be back, right? There tends to be the way it goes. They tend to be a little bit less free and easy.
Luca will be playing. Luca will be playing, won't he?
The redemption arc for Maxime Lucu this weekend. I'm really there for it.
Well, you see who is in... Yeah, I think he might be out for the season. It looks pretty nasty, that.
I think they were thinking he might be back for the last 16 game, possibly at earliest. I know you've personally got quite a lot riding on that, which maybe we'll come to in a bit. And Toulouse.
Have you seen his training with Toulouse this week?
Is it?
He's back.
Fly half.
Tony D is back with Toulouse. I mean, quite why he was in the stand. Quite why he was in the stand
on Saturday. Yeah.
Saturday.
Just chilling.
Just chilling was just bizarre.
Yeah.
But have you also seen who is back training?
I think is it going to be too soon for
I can't
Roman
imagine he'll
Ntamack?
play. Yeah, he's been out for what, nearly a year.
Yeah.
I mean, he looked pretty comfortable scooting around the après match. Not actually scooting, but he had a scooter helmet in hand, just strolling into the après match Estada and Esvalon a couple of weeks ago. But he's been out for so long, I'd be amazed. I think he's only just got back into training like last week or so. So he's not going to be playing. And they don't need him. Like they've got too many players to play at 10 anyway.
They've been great to lose. Like they obviously I know they lost a very young team, lost at Perpignan, but
that was a
they've
very
pulled out.
team.
Yeah, it was a few debuts I think in the front row, weren't there? They pulled out some really good away wins during this sort of, or the run of form, the unbeaten run they were on before that. Proper depth. Still with a few injuries knocking about as well in some key. Well, you take Ntamack, Dupont, Jelonch out of any side, it's going to make a pretty big difference. But for some of these boys coming in, look.
Yeah.
Tell me about your man Castro Ferreira.
Oh, I think he's brilliant. Like he's who is he like? He's got that kind of Mercer-esque, like bigger than he looks type thing, or no, plays bigger than he is sort of thing. Like he's not actually massive compared to some of the kind of back rows out there, but he just plays like he's like a bit like Aldrit, I guess, just mows people down. He's a proper athlete. He's got a nose for the line as well. I think we'll see more of him. We'll definitely see more of him playing. I don't think he quite gets into a first choice back row at the moment, but he was good enough to be kind of being kept away from under 20s games during the Six Nations to play for Toulouse. So, Matisse Castro Ferreira, not to be confused with Martin Castro Giovanni, he's the name to look out for. I think in that I think like watching Toulouse in the flesh, like they had some young guys. So Paul Costes in the centre is another one who just they absolutely love. I think they signed him up to a 6-year deal or something. And Gorge, who's like an 18-year-old fullback, he actually played 12, I think, the under 20s on Friday night. He looks a brilliant player. But it's that they talk about it, don't they? Like the secret sauce of Toulouse. Like they've kind of just got something in them that they all play the same way. It all looks so natural. I think the Espoirs just with their under 23s just win their league like the whole time, like every year, and they're way ahead this year from what I remember. Yeah, that academy is just churning out players. Josh Brennan looks a brilliant player.
Yeah.
Son of Trevor Brennan, back row, second row, physical, nasty, athletic, carries hard. I think, although just thinking about it now, like I think they've maybe been a bit fortunate with their fixtures in this period. They had Claremont away, who were struggling. They had Oyonnax at home to kind of bleed in quite a lot of the number of youngsters. Get Paul Grau his first big start with Dupont away, and getting him 5 tries or whatever, or 4 tries. They had Bayonne at home, didn't they? Bayonne terrible away, so that's quite an easy fixture. The only tough one there is potentially Cast as a kind of local derby, and they fortunately fell. They didn't turn up, and it fell for them when they had Willis coming back from injury, Miafu coming back from injury, Flamont coming back from injury, so they were all available. Whereas other years it was a fallow weekend, so they had Kinghorn playing at fullback. It kind of all fell into place quite nicely for them that weekend. LaBelle was playing. I don't know what they're going to do at 10. To lose. I just like we're looking at Bordeaux thinking, God, if only Jalibert was playing. Garcia looks great. Like it's just there's so many players in the top 14 that you're like, oh, I wonder how young this guy is, and you're like, oh right, he's 21. Great. There's just so many of them, and Garcia for Bordeaux seems like another one who's just 21-year-old fly off, and he just looks so comfortable doing most things. As well as kind of Deporter and
but I mean Bordeaux have looked. I mean, pretty much across the park. I know there's a little bit of a gap between them and Stade and Toulouse, but have looked pretty I've seen a reasonable amount of them playing on telly this year, and they've looked. I think some of the games they've been brilliant, like genuinely brilliant. I know maybe the Champions Cup Saracens aren't quite the team they were, but there was a lot of international quality, a lot of real kind of winners and experience and old heads, and they got totally blown away, completely ripped apart in a manner that you don't really see very often. And they've got the back line when it looks like it's firing is, there was talk before the Six Nations. Could you, for the sake of fitting things in, could you just pick that up and put it straight in with Murfana and Buros and Deporter and who plays on the other wing for them? Biel Barret, of course. Biel Barret, Penno, it's pretty phenomenal, isn't it?
The only one in their first choice backline that hasn't played for France in the Six Nations was Buros at 15.
And he probably wasn't a million miles away. I wouldn't.
Part of it, if Barret was playing that last game,
and then up front, Big Ben, what a boy. I felt a little bit something about Kane Douglas, Petty, and Adam Coleman. That sort of slightly over the hill second rows who probably get paid an
Petty's
absolute...
like 28, isn't he?
Is he?
They're all younger than you think. Coleman, I think, is old, but I think Kane Douglas might play for Scotland sometime soon.
Well,
there was talk of it.
He's leaving, isn't he? Because they want, haven't they signed Johnny Gray to replace Kane Douglas?
I didn't know that.
I think. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I always feel slightly tarnished by the rumoured salary that Adam Coleman was on at London Irish, and then I think he played about 15 minutes in 8 games because he kept getting sent off for high tackles. But they've been good. Gazzotti,
I think because they were kind of level on points with the others, with Stade and Toulouse. I think they have dropped. I think the Six Nations, they have been the team most affected in the Six Nations. And when you look at, losing your two first choice halfbacks never helps anyone. But I felt like the Six Nations was them just kind of clinging on to damage limitation of how trying not to drop off the pace, basically. Certainly that Po game, with their away record, that was a real shock, and that's the kind of one that's probably done them, I think, a little bit.
So, cards on the table. Who's going to shade it? You'd assume it will be shaded either way.
I think it comes too soon for Bordeaux. I just think Toulouse they've just got so many players that are just so good. How do you fit Ramos, Malia, Kinghorn into the same starting lineup? And Tony D will be back. But Grau, I kind of thought this guy must be a, mid-20s, never really heard of him, can't be that good. And he just looked unbelievably calm and collected. And Malia at 10 looked amazing. I don't know who they're going to play at 10. I think it might be Ramos based on before the Six Nations and obviously last weekend.
You'd think so. I think I'd rather it at the Chaban Delmas, but I'm going for a Maxime Lucu inspired Bordeaux Beg side to pull something together.
Tony D sent off for a high shot on Maxime Lucu.
It should be.
Imagine if it was the other way around. Imagine if Maxime Lucu just close seatbelt tackle, second yellow or something on Tony D, and it's just can this get any worse for Maxime Lucu?
Or do the full the Namibian captain who nearly ended the Ponce World Cup with the head-on-head, and there were rumours. I don't know if they did. They played for Colomiers, didn't they? And Pro Leader, and they were thinking they might just rip his contract up. I don't know. He might have been chased out of Toulouse. Who knows? Yeah, it should be. And I think try and make sure find a quiet corner on Sunday to watch that. Feels a pretty good way to maybe get over the Sunday night blues.
Knowing Viaplay, it'll be not being shown for some Spanish. And you have to record the replay at 4 a.m. on Tuesday morning or whatever it is.
That's cool. called up some fella for one of those Amazon Moody sticks.
Yeah.
Stream it from Guinea-Bissau or something like that. Final on, you mentioned there, people haven't picked up during this. You were in Toulouse a couple of weeks ago. Sounded a pretty good trip. Bordeaux played Toulouse, two places you visited. I visited with yourself. If anyone was listening, one recommendation for Bordeaux, one for Toulouse. Eating, drinking, sightseeing.
Bordeaux, I'm gonna have to find the name of it, but you know where I'm saying.
Comptoir d'Etienne.
Comptoir d'Etienne. That's the best steak. Certainly top 3 steaks I've ever had, and just that place was just amazing. Dauphinoise.
The wine.
Go and pick your wine from the cupboard, point to it, and say, "Yes, I want that one, please." Yeah, what place for you? Best. Where's your recommendation? Is you going same place?
Probably that, or if anyone finds themselves at a loose end between the hours of 11 and 3 in the morning, you can sign up for I think I've still got, I might have lost the membership card, club, I think it was called Esperanza.
Yeah.
And it
Club
was
Esperanza.
a bar come art club or something. And it was, it's members only. But you can sign up for €5 and you get a free pint. And I think 6 of us got in. So that would be my slightly left field shout. Toulouse, quite hard. I mean, any French market's good, isn't it? But I do think that one, the Victor Hugo in Toulouse, has a certain charm, particularly on a match day.
Would you say the Victor Hugo is better than the Marché des Capucins in Bordeaux?
I wouldn't say
it might be. I
don't know if it's better.
As a market,
it's more overtly rugby-y on rugby days. Maybe
Victor Hugo.
Yeah. And there's I don't think we went when we went with a few friends a couple of years ago, but there's a couple of pretty fair set menu type things upstairs in the narrow corridor.
I had a little browse because we weren't sure what we were going to do, and I just thought, I'll just go and have a look. And it's proper sit down restaurants up there.
Yeah, it's good. It's really nice. Little cassoulet, Breton cider.
My recommendation is Le Dahou, which I've now been to twice. Once with you, and quite simply has the best dauphinoise I've ever had. Going back there with a fairly skeptical, cynical friend of ours who hadn't tried the dauphinoise last time because he hadn't arrived yet. We did wait quite a long time, and as the longer we waited, the more
irate,
the more cynical Reef got. And this dauphinoise came out, and he was silenced, which is no easy thing. It is Le Dahou, which is in the centre of town, off down one of the little cool cobbled streets, not far from Chez Tonton, which seems to be the big student hangout. I did have an unreal pizza, one of the best takeaway pizzas I think I've ever had in Toulouse as well.
But very nice.
We can delve into that another time.
If you want to go all the way to Toulouse for a pizza, then don't
might be one of the best of your life.
Fair enough. Great. Let's wrap that up. It's going to be a good weekend. The top 14. Extras, petit-fours to wrap up.
You've got a few.
I've got a couple. Sebastian Calvé, who I don't know, have the French under-20s team. Have they gone a bit over the top? I don't think he's been fired. He's coached the French under-20s, and he is set to become the new head coach or director of rugby or top brass at Agen. So fair play to him. I think he was involved at Agen.
I think that was rumoured before, or very early on in the Six Nations.
Announced, I think confirmed today. We're recording this on Tuesday. Other big thing confirmed today that's been floating around for a little bit is, which might interest English rugby fans, is Manu Tuilagi to Bayonne, which we discussed a little bit. I don't know. It feels a little bit un-Bayonne, and they're sort of, there are ways of pulling out a few gems. But in a weird way, I like it for him because he gets to play at the Stade Jean Berger and live in Bayonne and just have a wicked time. Drink wine by the rivers.
Rivers, all three of them.
Get an Uber to San Sebastian and fun stuff like that. Who knows? Maybe it will. He's been a bit injured. Well, he's been constantly injured, but I quite like the statementness, as it were. Bit of a kind of celeb signing for Bayonne.
They did a bit of that when they came up and they signed Machinot and double. And then Aturia this year is kind of but it was very like with Lopez and Aturia, it was very much like, let's bring these Basque boys home. And they've signed Reece Hodge, who has done nothing. He had a shocker.
Been injured? Was he injured to start?
He has been injured. He played in that Glasgow game and he was dreadful.
Yeah. Which surprises me because he's some player when he wants to be.
Yeah. We've had a message from one of our followers on Instagram, Yanis. Shout out, Yanis. I'm scared for Bayonne. They paid a ton of money. Yanis is an Argentine fan, so he's getting under 20s World Cup winner, a World Cup winning coach going to his club. I'm scared for Bayonne. They paid a ton of money for Turangi to come. The club is not rich. He needs to be good because if he's going to be bad, it's bad for the finances of the club. So, yeah.
Can't say fairer than that. That seems like a pretty fair summation of the potential problem of Manu Tuilagi. Who knows? I wonder how. I feel.
I'm genuinely intrigued.
I don't think Manu Tuilagi will be on perhaps the sort of cash he might have been in Japan or somewhere like that. I don't see it. I think some of these sides are too shrewd for that kind of thing, particularly somewhere like Bayonne.
I'm amazed he hasn't gone straight swap with Nice Alevu.
Too long.
That just feels like that.
It does.
Toulon feels so Manu Tuilagi.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. And then two other bits. Who was in the Brive changing room today? Or he might have been in a couple of days ago. A French sportsman was in the Brive changing room to talk about. I don't know what he was talking about, but he was there. He looked great.
I was going to say, was it Sia Khaleesi? Because he's been absolutely everywhere. Just
Alex Ferguson, Tyson Fury,
Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah. No, it wasn't the big one.
To be getting a selfie with Jurgen Klopp, talking about how much of a Liverpool fan you are, and then 2 weeks later, Man United Liverpool being sat next to Alex Ferguson.
Incredible! What a move!
You would if you could. You would if you could.
You would if you could. I don't think you'll guess. You don't think you'll guess this.
Is this person from Brive?
I don't know. They're French. They play. They're a footballer.
Christophe Dugarry.
No, it's not Christophe Dugarry. No, similar era of when
Fabien Barthez.
No, if you go opposite in hair.
All I can think of is Ivan Campo, but he wasn't French.
No, it was.
I know the guy. Oh, he's a left back. That's not Dixon Lizarazu. It's the other one.
No, far more well known. Emmanuel Petit. Was knocking about in the Brive changing room today. Amazing. And then a final thing to wrap us up. We've spoken a bit about the Shaban Delmas. There is a commemorative celebration game on May the 14th at the Shaban Delmas because it's been celebrated 100 years. 100 years of the sport at the Shaban Delmas. It is a football match between a Girondins de Bordeaux FC team.
Girondins Bordeaux, yeah. Who are now they're not in the top league.
No, they're next one down, aren't they?
Which is mental. They play in a 50,000 seat stadium.
Yeah.
At that team.
42, 43, I think. 42, it's a little bit smaller. On the Girondins team, you mentioned Dugarry, he's playing. The first name on the list is Zinedine Zidane. Excuse me.
He's playing for Bordeaux in that game.
Yeah, apparently played for Bordeaux. And then on the
who are they playing against?
They're playing
he was Marseille, wasn't he?
I think he was born in Marseille. So they're playing the Variété Club de France, which is coached by Michel Platini, which is like an invitational side. Well, they both are, which contains among
that
others,
feels like a team that was set up in Paris in like 1860 or something.
Yeah,
isn't it?
possibly. Sidney Govou,
Nice.
Robert Pires, but perhaps more interestingly, Serge Blanco and Dimitri Yashvili are playing for them as well. So yeah, we'll retweet that on Rosbif Rugby, or re-X that or whatever you call it now.
Retweet.
That feels well. It's quite fun, really. Any closing thoughts before we wrap up? We're not going to touch on Pro D2.
I'm about to run out of battery, but I've got some Pro D2 news that we can save for next week because this is an absolute wild story.
Fantastic.
And yeah, we'll do a rundown of Pro D2 and why we should be interested in Pro D2 despite it being semi-impossible to follow in the UK.
Very much the hipster's choice of rugby, but it is good fun. Rob, enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you
for listening. Hopefully the scandal or whatever I have no idea what Rob's talking about, but it might encourage me to come back next week for another dip. Thank you for listening. I've been Richard. That has been Rob. We have been Rosbifs Rugby. You can follow us on kind of everything, Instagram, give or take.
Instagram, X, TikTok, YouTube.
Yeah.
What can't you follow us on? LinkedIn. We haven't got LinkedIn yet.
No, not yet. Au revoir.
Au revoir.